According to the Herald Mail, drug use, especially heroin, is up around the city. Overdoses are also up. Is this an area where our proximity to 81 and 70 interchange is a bad thing? How about the prisons located near Hagerstown? Ashley, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that implying that our proximity to 81 and the prisons is an easy grab for folks in terms of catching blame. But I think that if we're looking at it realistically, dollars spent on drugs, be them illegal prescription drugs or heroin, those are spent not in the cities, in the suburbs. And recent situations, one of them very tragic, involving a gentleman that you and I worked with, Bob, and his child, came from a good home. Oh, yeah. And I think that we really need to think carefully about what brings these drugs into our community in the first place. Not racialize it or immediately try to blame the lower class. I don't think that the proliferation of heroin is a lower class issue. I think that heroin has been born from the epidemic of prescription drug abuse.
I don't think you can get away from the interstates, though, as being a really big contributing factor to that. I mean, they call from Winchester to Harrisburg, they call that the heroin highway. And it's just too easy from New York to Charlotte to Atlanta and that kind of thing. And when you have them east and west, north and south like that, the interstates, they have to play a role. It's just good business if you're a drug dealer.
So what do you do about that, though?
Oh,
I mean,
I'm just positing an opinion. I'm not sure, other than I do have one thing to say, and this might strike people as cold, but I know that they just came out, and as a former medic, I know the wonders of Narcan and what it can do for drugs like heroin. I do have a bit of a moral problem with spending money and outfitting all the cops with Narcan. Not because I think they shouldn't have it. Great, it's a wonderful thing. But I'd much rather the money that goes into Narcan be spent on AEDs for patrol cars, because I'd much rather them take care of somebody who was trying to do the right thing and jog in the park and he had a cardiac arrest than a junkie. That's,
Well, and see, my flip side of this, I think, is that although I'm a true believer in that we have to treat the disease, okay, once they've been diagnosed with the disease. But, if you look at the numerous arrests that were made just recently by Narcotics Task Force, and you take those individuals and you place them under one kingpin, okay, that was arrested from Baltimore, arrested and was had a hearing in Martinsburg, and this guy has been supplying millions of dollars of heroin to the tri-state area for sure, maybe the quad-state area. They released him on home arrest, home detention with an ankle bracelet. Now, this is a guy who has millions of dollars to escape with. To cut that bracelet off and be gone. But yet we've arrested like 16, 18 people who have minuscule amounts of heroin, and granted they need to be locked up. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they're wrong to begin with. All right, they were caught in a sting, and they'll be found guilty. But we let the guy who's supplying all that go home and hang out at his house.
Well, I think that you touched on a really important point, and I think that what bothers me the most about the heroin epidemic is that we don't have infrastructure in place to deal with it. 10 years ago, it was cocaine and marijuana. Our views have shifted on that recently. This is something that can kill people on their first try. It's not something like smoking a joint. It literally is something that people inject into their body and can immediately cause their heart to explode. I mean, essentially. So we're dealing with a very, very dangerous situation, and it hits very close to home when a child that, for all intents and purposes, was a happy, smiling, successful child falls victim to something like this. So we really need to take a step back and not just immediately cast blame on our proximity to the interstates and our proximity to prisons, and think about where we are as a culture, that this is such an easy thing for people to be involved with.
And I'm hearing everyone talk about causes, so what's the solution? I mean, the United States has been talking about being overrun by drugs since the Civil War. I mean, it's been a known factor since then. No one has solved it yet. Are there any cities or any nations that have solved the problem?
You know what?
I believe that there are. I believe that there are, and I think that they are those cities that
Which
really
ones? I mean,
consider.
can we follow their examples?
I think that the decriminalization and the legalization of marijuana has had a huge impact on cities
Other
that have
illegal drugs.
allowed it to happen. This may be very relevant for us because
Up or
we're
down?
considering
I
a
mean,
huge facility. What I am saying is, if you see the drug problem as one big thing, and we see that we have limited resources to approach it, why can't we be realistic about certain things and focus on the things that actually kill our citizens?
In my perfect semi-libertarian world, I say legalize all of them, tax the heck out of them, and it's not up to me to keep people from destroying themselves however they want, quite frankly.
And in some European countries that has been done, and the out factor of drugs, the crime and that sort of thing, has decreased tremendously.
Right. You've taken away the reason for drug lords to be killing people across the border.
Yeah.
So I almost feel like let people do what they're going to do. I mean, and tax it.
And tax
So
it.
I hate to say that, but I really feel that's where we are.
We can wipe the national debt out in like
So-
3 years.
Yeah.
The one thing that hits close to
We can agree
home
on
for
that.
me, as
I think we
I
agree on
found
most
out
things.
very recently that I qualify as a millennial, right? Just barely. The thing that bothers me about the heroin epidemic is that my generation of veterans, the gentlemen and women who went to Afghanistan, I know of several that came back with a penchant for opiates, as it is part of the culture. We dealt with this in Vietnam. You know, gentlemen and women came back with certain penchants. For
Yeah, but
other
we didn't
things.
deal with it then. We just let it go.
We just let it go. But what are we doing with it now?
Well, I mean, the Obama administration has decided that we're not going to treat any vets for anything. I mean, you know, we're just going to let them.
Oh, that's a broad scope. You'd have to
Hey,
back
Hey, I
that-
can
you'd
paint
have to
that
back
with one
up.
brush, buddy. I'm telling you. There is no doubt in my
Yeah,
mind.
you'd have to back that up a bit. I mean, the Veterans Administration problems were long preceded of the Obama administration.
No, well, he didn't help any.
Perhaps not, but they long preceded his administration.
Let me tell you something. Here's, you know, in 1998, we formed in the city of Hagerstown the street crime unit. Okay, the SCU was made up of 6 police officers and a sergeant. And that unit's job was to go into hotspot areas where we had drugs and crime and spend 90 days there and attack that problem. Unfortunately, because I implemented the street crime unit in 1998, unfortunately it went away in like 2004. They got absorbed by NTF, and for a long time all they did was sit and do surveillance and things like that. Not that that's not important, because it is. That's how you get 16 people in one fell swoop, okay?
Right.
But we were making like 15 arrests a night, buyers and sellers, with the street crime unit. You know, that was making an impact, and that's what, now granted, we didn't get rid of crack cocaine, we pushed
No.
it inside. There was not an open air drug market
But you
anymore.
harassed it enough that it
Exactly,
had... Right.
exactly. And I told, you know, when my police chief prior to Dale, or to Art Smith, you know, I told him, I said, you know, you need to send, because we heard of this problem that was on Salem Avenue above the laundromat in an apartment, and we hadn't gotten anything on them yet. And I said, listen, we need to do something now. We got to be proactive. Send the street crime unit down and knock on the door and say hi. Well, what do you think that's going to do? Well, I'm pretty sure it's going to make them want to leave. Okay,
Right.
I mean that's how I looked at it. But listen, we're out of town on this one. Out of time on this one, guys. I'm sure we could talk about it for a lot longer. But next up on the flip side, the Baltimore Police Commissioner is out. So does that help in the problem? Stay tuned. We'll be back in 3 minutes.